Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with the Women's Motorsports Network. And I'm pleased to have for my guest today someone a little bit different because normally, Patrick, we have women on this podcast, but you're going to be one of our few men. But I feel like what you're doing and your story is very pertinent to what I do and the women in motorsports. And so my guest today is Patrick Reynolds. And as I do with most of my guests, Patrick, I let you tell your story instead of me trying to do it secondhand. So, why don't you start by just telling me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, family, pets, anything that you'd like to share, and then we'll get into what you're doing now.
Sure. Thanks for having me on the show, Melinda. It's great to check a box, so to speak,
Absolutely.
on a Women's Motorsports Network, allow a guy in here to tell his story.
Yeah.
I'm a New England native, grew up in Connecticut, and in Southern New England, that's kind of that Northeast NASCAR tour type modified country. When I was a little kid, those didn't exist. They were kind of jalopies, coupes, pintos, gremlins, Vegas, things like that. But modifieds were king, and the Danbury Race Arena in Connecticut was my home track. Sadly, it is a shopping mall now. Became that way in the 1980s. But when I was younger, that's where I grew up. That's where I got the bug for the sport, the passion, the love of, started with cars turning left, but then turned into all things motorsports. The track closed. It was a fairgrounds. The property was sold, became a mall, but the racing passion was still in me. I ventured out to other tracks. There's some fairly well-known tracks in Southern New England as well, probably Stafford Speedway, well-known,
Yes.
Thompson in Connecticut. On the dirt side, where I grew up, it was very close to New York State, which has quite a few dirt tracks in it. Got old enough to turn wrenches, so started off, like so many, volunteer crew member on the modified cars, both on pavement and dirt. Got the bright idea to go racing myself, bought an entry-level street stock, went broke. Go figure, right?
Go figure.
Went back to pit crewing my buddy's cars, both on dirt and asphalt. Took another stab at it. I didn't learn my lesson with going broke once, so I bought a late model, went broke again. So went back to the pit crew world. Eventually, like a lot of people, they heed that call to the Charlotte, North Carolina area to jump in with both feet in NASCAR as a career. Mm-hmm. And people that don't understand that, I say, if you want to be an actor, you move to LA. You want to sing country music, you move to Nashville. You want to be involved in NASCAR full time, you come to Charlotte. So I did. Moving van, no job, got an apartment. Back in the days when you actually handed out paper resumes.
Okay.
I went door knocking with resumes, looking for a job on a team, pit crew, mechanic, fabricator, what have you. Eventually worked my way in some of the lower level teams. I shouldn't say lower level, but lower funded teams that were looking for cheap help. So I caught a break there and worked my way around the NASCAR Cup, truck, and at the time Busch Series for several seasons. A few years, was on a plane every Thursday, flew home every Sunday. Had a whole career in NASCAR. The 2008 recession fixed all that. Many people in the industry lost their positions as jobs dried up, the economy changed. I think everybody in the country went through some kind of change or evolution during those years. Mine as well. That's where I stumbled into radio. I was unemployed and was at, I believe, a Chamber of Commerce job fair or networking function. I can't even quite remember what it was, but I was unemployed and I was just shaking hands looking for a job at that point. And I stumbled across a guy that said, "Hey, have you ever tried radio?" And I said, "No." He said, "You want to give it a shot?" And kind of like my broadcast and journalism career was born that way. By coincidence, a local radio station was starting an auto racing talk show. Of all things, to walk into the right guy at the right time. So I had no on-air experience or training, but I auditioned for the show the following week. The week after that, we started the show full time. I was hired as the co-host of this show. And so at least I had a job for 1 hour a week, every week. the owner of the station heard me and said, "Would you like to be the newsreader on the morning show?" I said, "Sure." So I started that and became the morning show sidekick role as well as newsreader, and worked with a lot of good people that took me under their wing and showed me the broadcasting ropes. I began writing about the sport as well, and that was a time when a lot of the print was decreasing and the internet aspect of news coverage was increasing. So there was a lot of columnist positions available with various websites. So kind of stumbled into broadcasting and journalism, but I had an auto racing background, so I was able to talk about it. So eventually, I had some skill, which I translate back to my theater days in high school, of just speaking to an audience and convey a message. Evidently, I remembered a few things from my professors and directors and teachers back when I was a teen, and just transferred them decades later into motorsports and just tell a story. And the host of the original radio show, Auto Racing Talk Show, unbeknownst to me, was shopping the show around a little bit. Another producer heard it. He gave me a call and said, "Would you like your own show?" And I began a long run, what we call back then, it was this newfangled invention called internet radio. And now it's called a very common term called podcast, which I'm on right now.
Absolutely.
In 2008 or 9 or 10, this was a brand new concept that no one was really grasping at the time. Now it's extremely common part of society. So from there, that led to my own online radio show, still motorsports talk, auto racing talk. I was still writing and working with the radio station. That evolved to get to build a relationship with actually an entertainment company around Charlotte, North Carolina. And right now I'm currently a live MC for that business for a lot of concerts and festivals. But it's the stage, it's the microphone, it's an audience. Somewhere along the way, I learned how to do this. And I've retired from pretty much dirt under my fingernails, turning wrenches and cutting up metal, to I talk a lot. As you can tell, you asked me one question and I have now diatribing for I don't know how many minutes for you, but I can keep a conversation going and talk and communicate. And that's where I spend a lot of my time now. It's kind of shifted a little bit away from auto racing, but more towards local entertainment around the Charlotte, North Carolina area.
Well, you're the best kind of guest to have, because you ask one question and you let them take care of the show. And I can just sit back and enjoy listening to your story. So you're my most favorite kind of guest for sure. So isn't it funny? Isn't it funny how you start down one path and then you take a little jog and a little jog and a little jog, and to get to what you're doing today? And, you know, a lot of people are nervous about speaking in front of people. You have to be comfortable, even if it's just a podcast, you and I, because we know that a lot of other people are going to see us and listen to us. So you have to be comfortable having a conversation. And really, that's what it is. Even with your entertainment business, you're having a conversation with your audience.
I am pride myself in the events that we have of audience engagement. Of don't just preach to them and talk to them, but involve them, make them laugh, answer some questions, talk with them a little bit. And I associate it with being a roofer. And you'll see where I'm going with this is I'm afraid of heights. I can't get up on a ladder to change a light bulb. Yet there's guys that put on new roofs for a living every single day, and they hop on buildings and hop on houses. And I look up at these guys and go, how in the world can they do this? That scares me to death. I can't do it. I won't do it. And yet, as comfortable as I am in front of an audience, I find that with a lot of people, in that the last thing in the world, they want to get up in front of an audience and speak. Right. Public speaking is a top fear. Heights, snakes, flying, claustrophobia, public speaking in front of an audience is right up there. Somewhere along the way, I developed a comfort with it. No different than a roofer that would hop up on a ladder, get up on a roof with a pitch and start peeling shingles off and replace and make a repair. I don't understand how they do that. Yeah, they do it. It's just how the brain is wired. Mine's wired similarly, just in front of public speaking. Get an audience, just feel very comfortable and enjoy the experience of talking and entertainment like that. And I can babble on and on. I can fill time. As you mentioned, a good guest. I remember Waddell Wilson I had as a guest on air several years ago. He is memorable because I asked him uh, I asked him two questions, and he did 26 minutes of live radio with me. And
Wow.
I only asked him two things. I probably started with, "Hey, how's it going? Thanks for being here tonight." And he rolled from one story to another. And partway through it, I asked him another question, and he took the baton and ran with it.
Hmm.
Those are, for a host, as you understand and can relate, those are the easiest guests
Yes.
to have. You almost have the night off. You're just listening to great entertainment. But Waddell Wilson was fantastic on air. I remember that, how good he was.
Well, and I interview so many like younger girls or girls who've never done a podcast. And part of it, I feel like, is I'm kind of helping them along, giving them a little bit of experience, talking in front of people. But sometimes it's like pulling teeth to
Yeah.
get them to say more than one or two words at a time. And so, but you have a variety of guests, and I've just learned how to pull those teeth out of those little girls and find out their stories. And so, I love talking to people as well. And I don't have any trouble having a conversation with someone I just met. Like we just met, not that long ago. So, so tell me, what are you doing today specifically? How did you get there? And what are some of your passions about what you do?
Well, I spend a lot of time on stage. As I said, there's festivals and concerts around the Charlotte, North Carolina area, as well as north around Lake Norman. So I'm still in the heart of NASCAR country. I'm surrounded by a lot of professional shops. A lot of crew members are my friends. I know some drivers that are here throughout the years. But it's a place where when you go to another part of the country and you go to the racetrack and you were to see, I don't know, say Kyle Busch, there would be a line for his autograph or photos, and the fans would be kind of clambering. And if you were to bump into him here at the local Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, it's just another day that ends in a Y. So it's still a neat place to live. I guess it's if you lived in
Yeah.
Hollywood and you saw the actors every day at coffee shops, just part of the culture where you
Yes.
are. So I spend a lot of time right now in the music business, music festival area around the area. Spend a lot of time with that, and all of that has the roots back in auto racing for me. That the broadcast on air and all these podcasts I did, weekly ones for years and years, better than 10 years. So I've got hundreds of broadcasts under my belt, and that translated it's into what I'm doing now is with the entertainment and concert music business around Charlotte. The company I work for is Waves Entertainment, waves like the ocean, or a play on words with audio waves. And we provide stage and sound and LED walls for concerts.
Okay.
So I took an odd trip through short track racing, through NASCAR, through a recession, broadcast writing, to wind up with Waves Entertainment in the music industry. But I take the strengths that I learned as an auto racing broadcaster and working in NASCAR and use those to entertain a crowd now in music festivals. So I also do public speaking, MC work, have some motivational, inspirational talks I give to businesses and groups as well. So I've wound up spending a lot of time on some sort of a stage with a microphone talking to groups of people. And I think it was all because auto racing in the world of NASCAR led me in a direction. And then one door just leads, open the next one, and it's a series of dominoes. And I have a great time now. The same way I first got on air and radio, I feel that same way now, is that it takes me back to when I was a teenager and doing plays and musicals in high school, which I was an odd kid because I was in shop class learning auto mechanics because I wanted to go racing, yet at the same time I was doing theater. And there's no crossover in that Venn diagram
No.
in high school. There's nobody taking shop class and also doing musical theater at the same time. They're very separate friends groups that I have, but I was kind of an oddball there and had a lot of fun then, and I'm having a lot of fun now. Just one door just continued to open another.
And isn't that funny that back in those days you had no idea where your life was going to go, and back when I was in high school in the 70s, And at that time, when I was a senior in high school, they had a co-op system. So if you could find a job, a part-time job, you could work a job either morning or afternoon and go to school the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So it just so happened that a friend of somebody, I don't even remember how I got this job, but I went to work for the county newspaper. So, small counties in, especially in the Midwest, have a newspaper that covers the whole county. And so I went to work at the newspaper. And that was back in the day when you printed your story off on a big piece of white, shiny paper, and then you ran it through the beeswax machine. So it waxed the back, and then you laid it out on the board, and it stuck to the layout pages way back in the day. And so I worked at a newspaper. Go down the road about 15 years, and guess what I did? I took over the local newspaper in the little town where I lived in. Now, had you said to me in high school, oh, someday you're going to own a newspaper or write for an online magazine, online wasn't even, you don't even know what that was in the 70s.
Yeah.
But it turned out that what I did when I was in high school, I owned a weekly newspaper in Illinois for about 10 years from my little town. And then now I'm doing, besides the podcast, I do an online magazine all about women in motorsports. So all those things that you learned along the way were preparing you for where you are, same as I, but who would have guessed that that's where you were headed?
It's funny. I talk to a lot of people I know, and I know more people that used to be in the NASCAR garage than are currently in the NASCAR garage. It's really a revolving door of people that went in, had a career, and got booted out. And we're all doing different things now than when my friends were 10, 15 years ago. And just people outside of racing as well. You ask them what their degree is in or what they learned when they were younger, and they're not doing anything now relative to what their education is in. You said something earlier. We were talking about radio guests earlier, and how you talk to some of the younger ladies, younger women on your show. And when it triggered a memory of mine when I always spoke to younger folks on my show as well. I did some older veterans. I talked to some new people growing up, coming up through the ranks. I mean, I had Bubba Wallace on my show when he was a teenager still as a guest. And a lot of these kids at the time, they're adults now, but they went through media training. And there was no media training for race car drivers when I grew up. I think Richard Petty was a natural at it. But Bobby Allison, Cale Yarborough, David Pearson were the giants at the time. Darrell Waltrip was the new kid on the block. Mm-hmm. There was no real media training, but the guys that knew what to do and figured it out on their own, and what a tool that media was, how good it was for sponsorship, as well as growth of the sport and their own branding and personality. Yeah. They outshined the rest of the field. And the younger folks, like the younger ladies you talk about, I appreciate the struggle at times with some of them, not all of them, but they're trained to speak in 30-second sound bites. And there's a time for that. There's a time on radio and a time for TV when you don't want to go on and on. I'm real good at going on and on, but I can shorten it up too, depending on the situation. Yeah. And the younger, if I would say anything to the younger generation, is learn the difference with that. This type of format, Melinda, that you have is a nice foundation for storytelling, elaboration, details, talk some details on it. Don't just Q&A, boom, boom, boom the whole time. So I hope if a younger person sees this, recognize a little bit of time when you can let your hair down, tell a story, elaborate, let us get to know you a little bit. But there are times on a live broadcast. Yeah, boom, 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 that 30-second soundbite answer. Yeah. Make sure you thank the pit crew, the team, and the sponsors, as well as answer the interviewer's question. It's not easy. It takes some people decades to learn that or just recognize that. But hopefully the young ladies that you are interviewing, they know as their careers grow, when they're on TV, they know how to answer that right, but also recognize there's a time when they sit with you. Let your hair down, elaborate. Let's learn a little bit more about you. I think that's fascinating I'm interested in hearing an 18-year-old's viewpoint as much as I'm hearing of an 80-year-old's retired viewpoint and what they've seen their entire life. I'm interested in both perspectives, and would like to hear more from the young folks. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I do interview a range of people, as you said you did too. And there's things that the younger generation have never even heard of. When you if you wanted to
You mentioned newspapers, they may not know what that is.
They'd be like, a weekly newspaper, what was that?
Daily newspaper even.
Yeah, exactly. So I do love to hear their story. And one of the things that I did when I owned my newspaper was it was called the Eagle News, because I lived right along the Mississippi River, and it was the winter nesting ground of the American bald eagle. So the name of the newspaper was the Eagle News. And we called ourselves the Good Newspaper, because the county paper that I worked for way back in high school covered the obituaries and the murders and all those things. And they didn't need to hear that from me. So what I did was good news stories, human interest stories, school, sports, etc. Because everybody has a story. And that was the thing that I enjoyed the most, was telling people's stories. And I didn't want to report on the murders and the obituaries and all those things. And so, you talk about kind of pulling things out of people. That's the fun part, because you never know, especially a younger girl, you really never know what they might say. And it can be very interesting at times to find out some of their answers. So I love what I do, for sure.
Everybody's got a story, but it's up to us to ask them and get them to tell it. Yeah. The radio station that I used to work for, it was tough to, promote good news, because we could watch the clicks on the news website when we would promote news stories. And it's a morbid phrase, but it was true. And that it was called, if it bleeds, it leads. And the dark stories of tragedy and death, they would have by far the most reads and the most clicks. And the good stories of, someone won Teacher of the Year, or a policeman was honored for service, or something like that, the readership was down. But when you had a tragedy, sadly to say, there was just so much news traffic. It's, the theory of the accident on the highway, everybody slows down to take a look. It's sad. It's society. But unfortunately, good news, it's tough to sell. And that's why there's so much fear and mayhem in mainstream media. I could do a whole podcast on that. Tragedies. That's what sells, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's what leads every nightly news story. And unfortunately, the front pages of most newspapers, if you read them online or wherever. And that is very sad that that's the society that we live in. But it's the same reason why a lot of people go to the racetrack. What do they want to see? Do they want to see a good race, or do they want to see the wrecks? Yeah, they want to see the wrecks.
Yeah, I was a guy that wanted to see the good racing.
Me too.
I thought a good race was one with a lot of passing and not a lot of accidents. That was a good race to me. If I didn't see an accident, I was happy. I wanted to see literal racing, like side by side. Let's pass. Let's compete. That's what I wanted to see for a race. The ones that claimed that people went to see the accidents were the people that I asked, well, do you go to the race? And they said, no, they don't go. So I wonder, there was a disconnect there. It's like, well, how do you know people are going for the accidents when you're not going yourselves and don't get to know these people? Now, I considered an accident or a crash in a race much like a hard hit or a hard tackle in a football game. You don't want to see anybody hurt, but that spectacular value that added to the sporting event, it's there. That wow, I saw this incredible crash. Thank goodness nobody was hurt, but it was spectacular to witness. You can say that. But I never went to a race rooting for a big wreck. Never. Actually, I've been to plenty of races where there were too many wrecks, and it drove me nuts. When if you've been, in the short track world, go a lap, there's a caution. Go a lap, there's a caution.
Yes.
That drives me bananas.
I've sat through many a race that looked like that. Not my favorite kind of race.
No, I'm happy green to checkered, green, white, checkered,
Yes.
done.
Yeah.
Have it zip right along. That's a good race to me.
Yeah. So what's your favorite thing about your life, your job, what you do? If you had to pick one or two things, what keeps you involved? What makes you happy at the end of the day that this is what you're doing?
I think the reaction from the audience and the community. There's much, if you want to put it in the context of letters to the editor from a newspaper, for every letter you got, there were probably 99 that were not ever written or
Right.
sent to you.
Mm-hmm.
And most people will complain versus write a letter to say something nice.
Yes.
So if you do that math on what we do now at the festivals, the community is very supportive, and they do come up to us after a show and say, hey, that was great. Thank you for putting this on. My family was here. We had a great time. Friends get together. So there's that community feeling that we are actually serving the community right now in a big way. And especially we all took that for granted in 2020
Yeah.
when our lives were turned upside down, and when 21 rolled around and things started to slowly, step by step, return back to 2019 and previously. People took live events and community and gathering for granted. And I don't
Yeah.
think they do anymore. They understand, hey, there's a festival. Hey, there's a concert. Let's go. Because they had it taken away from them. They remember.
Yeah.
So there's the crowds are tremendous right now. And I think that really makes me happy and satisfied right now. And I think if I look back on the racing aspect of it, if I can give a second answer to the same question,
Sure.
the racing aspect was places I got to go, things I got to see, and people I got to meet.
Mm-hmm.
Being in racing in the upper levels of NASCAR, I got to rub elbows briefly, I mean, just for a moment or two, with some pretty cool celebrities.
Yeah.
I got to meet some really famous people along the way. The Hollywood and music types. Got to meet some famous racers as well. Everybody from the legends of Richard Petty, Mario Andretti, AJ Foyt, the Unsers, Bobby Allison, going on and on and on. I don't know if I've ever had a chance to meet them and talk to them, at least for a few minutes in my life, if I wasn't involved in the sport. So I've been able to meet a lot of neat, interesting, fascinating people, celebrity-wise, through motorsports and even through the local community, just mayors and citizens that are around Charlotte, North Carolina. I think that's a very satisfying part of my life, is just meeting people and giving something to them, creating something where they have fun and have a good time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you there because the I used to be involved in politics, and I won't bore you with that, but I did enjoy it, and funny enough, I wrote we had a monthly newspaper that went out to all of the Illinois. I was involved in the Illinois Federation. I guess I will tell you, Illinois Federation of Republican Women. And so I was the treasurer for 6 years, and then I ran the newsletter, which turned into a newspaper for 6 years. And I met some very important people, politicians, celebrities through that. But then also through motorsports, because we're seeing more and more people from other, like from the movie industry, especially the music industry, is really getting involved in motorsports. And so, what fun it is to meet them and some of the drivers and their wives. I've met some amazing wives of people that drive, NASCAR, that have actually become friends with me. If it makes you feel good to be able to walk down pit row and people recognize you as far as, hey, she's a friend, she's watched my son race, she's what, that kind of thing. And it just makes you feel good to know that you've made friends along the way. And as I say quite often, if God forbid motorsports goes away tomorrow, I still would have all those friendships. And that's the thing for me that I take away with, every day, is the people that I meet, the people that I interview and talk to, and they're going to be my friends now, no matter what. So that's my favorite part and my passion. So I answered my own question. How's that go?
Well, I think you did a wonderful job. You say things and it reminds me of piggybacking that question with some of the women that I have met in motorsports, and has had some of them on air as my radio guests, but Janet Guthrie, Shirley Muldowney, Lynn St. James, talked to Danica Patrick, the pioneers, the women that
Yeah.
are, movers and shakers,
Right.
making an impact in the sport, in a male dominated sport. I've had the pleasure of sitting with them and having a one-on-one with them for, sometimes 15 minutes or longer. But just have that time. It's like, who gets to say that? Who gets to do that you've met these people?
Yeah.
I've admired them from afar when I was younger. And then when you get to meet them and sit them, I don't want to take away from that experience. I want to absorb that and say, hey, racing has allowed me to meet some very cool people and do some really cool things. I'm thrilled with that I had the opportunity. Life is more about experiences and less about stuff as I get older. So let me have the experiences. Let me meet some cool people.
Absolutely. And, I sometimes wonder as parents, I have my oldest daughter's in her 40s. My youngest two daughters are in their mid 30s. And you sometimes wonder when you think back on Christmases and birthdays, it was about stuff back in those days, more than I think it is today. I think the younger people are more in tune to experiences and things, at least the ones that I seem to hang out with. And a good example is one of my daughters is 34. She has a daughter that's 12 who is a Swiftie. Do you know what a Swiftie is?
I sure do. My daughter's 17, so yeah.
Oh, you definitely know what the Swifties are. So that's all she could talk about for months is all these, she wanted to go to a show and see the concert. Well, of course, the Phoenix concert was sold out, and that's where they live in California, all these different places. My daughter tried to get tickets. And so she ended up, my daughter's a travel agent, by the way. So traveling to go for a weekend is no big deal for her. She ended up getting 2 tickets in the second row at the recent concert in Kansas City.
Wow.
And the emotion on not only my granddaughter's face, but my daughter's face, experiencing her daughter's first concert. It was about the experience. And my daughter said, yeah, it cost way too much money. I don't care, because we will never, ever forget this experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I took my daughter to her first concert several years ago. We saw Panic at the Disco. It didn't cost me nearly as much as what a Taylor Swift concert cost your daughter.
Yeah.
But it was her first concert, and it was about that experience.
Right.
And nothing will ever take away that memory. I think there is a shift generationally of the younger generation thinking more about experiences versus stuff. And I think maybe possibly in the years when you and I grew up, stuff was considered success. It was a success symbol when you had stuff, cars, boats, houses, what have you. So that's how we were raised, and we didn't know any better. And as life evolves, I kind of look back and say, yeah, I don't really need more stuff to put in a box to move to another house, but I could always use more memories. That's fun stuff. So kudos to your daughter. That's great for spending the money and just slapping the card down and say, let's go for it. That's great.
And she has 2 sisters, my other 2 daughters and I, we live vicariously through Instagram and Reels, and we felt like we were there with them because of all the things that she shared with us. And so those are the other things about experiences. Excuse me. My youngest 2 daughters live in Arizona, so I miss out on certain things that their kids do. But FaceTime and all those things allow me to experience what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And so, back to that, I think COVID had a lot to do with why, my daughter and many others feel that experiences are more important than the things. And that's something I try to get across to women who have not been to a NASCAR race. a local short track race, whatever it might be. I want them to go and experience a race in person, not just on TV. And the same with you with your concerts and your festivals. You know, oh, you could read about it or you could watch the news clip on TV, but you need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
You need to feel the vibe and all that. And so I think what you're doing is bringing memorable experiences to families, right?
Hope
And
so. That's the goal.
yeah, and racing. Hopefully, we're bringing new people to the track to experience races in person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've been to other professional sporting events as well, and TV doesn't capture any of them
No.
like in real life. But I would say auto racing more than the others because it touches more of the senses.
Yes.
I say, I've been to a basketball game, the NBA team here in Charlotte. I've been to the Knicks and a few other teams, but it's not a sport I feel. And in auto racing, you literally feel it, especially if if you've ever been to an NHRA event and seen top fuel cars launch off the line.
You vibrate in your seat.
You feel it. You feel it.
Yes.
And you can't feel a basketball game,
No.
but there's the vision, the sound, the smell, and the feel, and the energy and the excitement. So it goes for racing to an exponential degree, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But anything in life, take the opportunity to go, spend the money on the ticket.
Yeah.
Grab the flight. Money, whatever. I get it. You can't make stupid decisions with money. We all do anyway. But
but
I wouldn't recommend it. But nothing will take away that memory.
No.
So I recommend go to the sporting event, go to the concert, go and experience it. It's well worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. We may have gotten off track a little, but I think this is important, what we've been talking about. So
off
Patrick,
track. Pun intended.
Hey, I didn't even think of that. It's just my normal vocabulary, anything motorsports. So what would be something that I haven't asked you or we haven't talked about that you definitely want to make sure that people who listen to this podcast know about you, about what you do, or about plans for the future?
As far as I go, I'm embracing the unknown right now. I say that in regards to auto racing. I'm not involved in it on a day-to-day basis, but I've had some projects come in, some projects go out, and I'm thinking about what I would do next involved in the sport, probably from a broadcast or writing or journalism aspect to it. So possibly do something. I've never been not involved in the sport. Some things have come in, some things have come out. I'm currently don't have a current project, but certainly would be open-minded to something, either hopping on board with somebody else or maybe creating one of my own. And I'm not getting away from music and festivals either, though. That business, that concept, and that community is really going strong around Charlotte. And it's a lot of fun. And I'll stay with that and enjoy that, and then still keep the door open for an auto racing side project. Never really not been involved in the sport, so we'll see. I'm open-minded to jumping back in with something cool.
Well, that's exciting, and it'd be hard to give up the festivals and things. I know it's a long day, it's a lot of work. It can be hot, it can rain, it can be all kinds of things, but it also gives you chance to see and experience again so many things that you wouldn't get to do otherwise, and up close and personal. That's the thing. You're right up there where you get to see the crowd and the backstage and all that together. And so that's really a fun part of that as well.
And similarity to that in auto racing was that people would use their time off to come see what you did for a living.
Yes.
And that's a cool concept. Is like they're 5 o'clock, they clock out, and then they want to head to where you're working to watch and see and experience. That's a neat feeling. And I guess both industries have that in common, how they give back to the community.
I think they do, for sure.
Cool.
Well, I have really enjoyed, Patrick, learning more about you and what you do. And I had a suggestion that I should reach out to you, and that was a good suggestion. And I'm so glad that I was able to connect with you and have you on the show. is there any last comments or words that you want to share before I let you go?
Yeah, I leave with a lot of this is don't be afraid, and this is generated towards the younger groups in the audience. When I was their age, and these teens that are coming up through racing, when I was that age, I didn't do a lot, or I did a bunch, but there were things I did not do out of fear. And
Mm,
if I could redo my life, and advice I would give younger folks is don't be afraid. Go take a chance. Go take a risk. It's okay to fail. It's okay to
yeah.
fall. You pick yourself back up and you move forward. A couple times I double clutched and pumped the brakes in life out of fear. And I probably should have just rolled the dice and gone for it because I was
Yeah.
young and got the time and the ability to make a mistake and get back up and correct it. It's going to be
Mhm.
okay. Life will be okay. But just those are my 3 words of advice. Don't be afraid.
Oh, that's great advice too. I love that. And even as a 67-year-old grandmother of 16,
Wow.
sometimes I have fears about things. Should I do? Should I? And I need to take your advice as well, because even at my age, sometimes there's things that I think I'm too old. I'm not in the right shape, this and that. But no, I need to reach out and do the same. So I appreciate that advice, not only for the younger girls, but for myself as well.
I had a radio colleague with words of advice to me. Says, if you're scared of it, you should do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something to sit on and think about. But those were wise words.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Well, Patrick, I have really enjoyed speaking with you today. This has been fun, and it's nice to have a change of pace from the normal kind of interviews that I do. And so this was a breath of fresh air for me.
I hope you had fun, Melinda. I did too. Thank you so much for having me on the show and on the network. I enjoyed it. Let's do it again.
All right, let's do it again. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Melinda. Appreciate it.
Bye.